I can't stress this, have to beat Minnesota. There's no way. Like, there's no path. There's no path if Nebraska doesn't beat Minnesota. There's no path. Like, you can't.
Okay. Welcome back in Nebraska Shootaround. Anna Bellinghausen, Mike Sautter joining you now. Mike, let's start on the women's basketball side. Little West Coast team in Lincoln for the first time, Oregon and Washington. Starting with that Oregon game, 94-90 win in OT. Big comeback for the Huskers.
Good news first, right?
Yeah, start there.
Hey, Oregon had a 14-point. Actually, they started the game 10-0, and then Alexis Markowski hit a couple threes, and then Nebraska got back into the game. And then the third quarter happened, and Oregon went on a run and had a 14-point lead with like 2 minutes left in the third quarter. And then Nebraska decided to just give Alexis the ball for basically the rest of the game. So she was phenomenal. I was trying to watch the men's game and the women's game at the same time, which is very hard. I'm never going to try that again. But I got out there in the middle of the third quarter where I could really kind of focus on the game, and just coincidence that, when I walked out there, they started playing well.
They started winning.
So from the media room to upstairs, it was incredible. I've seen Alexis Markowski play, I don't know, a lot in her life of all sports. And it was the best I've ever seen her.
Really?
35 career high, 6 3-pointers, 15 rebounds, playing without Britt Prince. Other people stepped up too, but she was phenomenal. I thought she was amazing that night. And even people, when I say step up, I mean, Logan Nisley had 7 rebounds. That's her career high. Jess Petrie didn't score a lot, but had 6 rebounds. And Callan Hake stepped into that point guard role. That's hard to do and kind of run things and know everybody's role and how to, she had a career high of 7 assists in that game. She's not used to that. And for her to step into that role and take over the lead ball handler, point guard position for that game, because Britt's injury, it was great. She was awesome. She hit a big 3 too down the stretch, and then overtime they played really well. So it was very encouraging, and the mood was very high after the game. And then Birdie Rimdahl just kept getting to the rim, and that's what she's really good at. So it was a great game. I thought they played pretty well. And Alexis, obviously, in particular, because they had I think, why can't I think of her name? Filipina K. She's huge. Like, she's really big. Like, she's a good defender, really big. And Alexis basically fouled her out. So that was good. She was taking it right to her too, not fading away. Sometimes she had a tendency to do that, but it was a great game. And defensively, they had to adjust, and they did, because Deja Kelly was just kind of going right on them or left on them the whole night. And then they just kind of held her off with high ball screens and brought Alexis up even higher than what they normally do in that ball screen situation to kind of cut her off from making plays to her left. Deja Kelly's a great player, but she's really good. Alexis was, I mean, the team effort was really good in that game.
So from your time covering Alexis, going back to high school, would you have ever guessed that Alexis would go down as literally one of the all-time greats at Nebraska?
Yeah, she's gonna. There'd be something drastically wrong if Alexis Markowski doesn't have her jersey retired at some point at Nebraska. She was very dominant in high school too. I mean, I don't think that. Did I think she'd be as dominant in college? Probably not. I knew she would be really good and all of that, but not, all time.
I mean, she probably surprised herself too.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. I would say it's fair. She's always just worked hard, and that's just her mentality. And I actually, after the Oregon game, I kind of figured or knew I wasn't going to be able to make the senior day game. So she was walking off the floor after everyone left and hugging family and stuff. And I just stopped her and I said, that it was a pleasure just to cover you and to be around you and watch you for all these years and get to know her, because it was great. Her family's great. They work hard. They're not scared of anything. And she had some nice words for me too, which I won't share those, but it was a cool little moment for me. It's a little private moment. And it was really cool to see what she did and how she's kind of finished her career and from some adversity, you know, to fight through some of that, and people talking negatively about her when she first got there and even in high school, and to see her fight through all that and come out on the positive end is pretty cool to see.
One of the best stories for sure, and getting to do it in her hometown. Couldn't script it better for her.
Right.
Moving on to Washington, that senior day you mentioned didn't go too well for Nebraska. Kind of rained on that senior day parade, 83-62 final. Just takeaways of what went wrong.
Yeah. Well, Alexis got hurt.
Yeah.
So that's probably part of it. I mean, Washington had a 28-point lead at one point. I mean, it just didn't go well. It just wasn't their day. And you only have 2 players scoring double figures. They need about 4 to be successful there and to do that. And, you know, the 2 players that scored in double figures for Nebraska were 19 points and 10 points. The 2 players that scored in double figures for Washington were 28 and 21. So a little different.
Yeah.
You know, it's not an awful loss. It's not a great loss because Washington is 7-9 and 16 and 12 in the league and 16 and 12 overall now. But Alexis did kind of have a little bit of an injury. She was doing everything, played really well until she got hurt. She finished the game with 31 minutes and 19 points and 12 rebounds. So there was a play, I guess, in the third quarter where she was posting up and kind of got an elbow to the back. And as she was leaning back, she kind of got elbowed and she was out. It ended up being out. I guess it was just a back spasm. So, which she tried to come back, but she couldn't get it loosened up. She wasn't the same, you know, at that time. So, without her, they've had some injuries this year.
Yeah,
that one would be the one you can't overcome. So,
100%.
And Jess Petrie had 10 rebounds in that game and played okay, but they needed probably a little better guard play in that time.
And still without Britt.
Yeah, Britt didn't play again. I think they're probably waiting for postseason play to bring her back. It kind of sounds like I don't know that for sure, but it sounds like Amy said she was day to day about 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. So, you know, actually after Oregon, she said she was day to day. So it's been a week. They obviously need everyone as healthy as possible to play. I think right now they have Northwestern. They got to win that game to really be like, all right, I do think they're still solid in the NCAA tournament, but 9-9 feels a little different than 10-8 in the league play. So her coming back and helping them down the stretch here would be great as far as Britt's concerned.
Yeah. Moving to the Big Ten tournament, how important do you think it is for Nebraska to get a win or two?
Yeah, I think they can make kind of a run at it. Do I think they can win it? Be hard, right?
Yeah, it's UCLA,
yeah,
USC. You got to go through one of those.
Yeah, I mean,
or both.
Those 2 teams are just great, and that matchups aren't awesome there either. Can they beat almost anybody else? I think so. I think probably, without talking to everyone, I think everyone in the league probably feels the same way. Like everyone can beat everyone except for maybe those 2.
Yeah.
So like even Indiana and Michigan.
Not a hot take.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those 2 teams are just.
Yeah. Michigan's really good, but I think you feel like you can maybe,
Iowa as well.
Iowa's
like you can get
they beat them once already. Maryland, they beat. Like it's all the teams kind of at the top-ish or outside of the top 2 are pretty kind of it's going to be very interesting to see who can win those games. So matchups, health, all of that will matter. Do I think they can win a couple games? Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm. I don't see them how they can't, unless some
you never know,
injuries happen again or something. Yeah,
they could have beat Iowa last year too.
Yeah,
so you never know.
Right.
You never know.
The run they made last year was phenomenal for them to get that done.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's flip over to the men's side of things.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, where should we start? The Northwestern win, 4-point win.
We talked about that. We didn't talk about Penn State.
We didn't talk about Penn State. What happened at Penn State?
They just didn't want to be there. It felt like from the beginning. Like it just felt like they just kind of were like, oh man, we're good. So on that road trip, they played 3, or I guess let's go half. So 3.25 halves of really bad basketball. Like just didn't, like the energy wasn't there. All of that wasn't there. Northwestern, the 0.75 was the last 15 minutes. They played really well and came back to win and set a record doing it. Penn State just jumped on them right away. Ace Baldwin's really good. He's a really good player, and their pressure was too much. I think it's kind of one of those things we talk about, like the environment is not great. It's not, it's not fun. You're on the back, long road trip because you stayed, out there, which is fine. It probably would have too. But it just felt like they were like, oh, we're ready to kind of be home for a little bit. I think the Penn State one, you just kind of flush it, right? You split that road trip. That's what you need to do. And you just kind of flush the Penn State one. Not saying that you look at it and be like, man, why didn't we, have the effort, energy, all of those things? Because that obviously was addressed.
Yeah.
But you kind of like the outcome. You're just like, okay, like that's kind of a blip. Like it's not a huge thing.
Not going to take too much.
I'm not. I didn't. Just personally, I didn't. I just kind of like, they didn't show up. They didn't play well. I said that, wrote about that. Like they did not. It was really bad. But at the same time, looking back, you just got to be like, it's not. It's a road loss in the league. It's not a horrible thing.
Sure.
It's not. It doesn't crush their I guess hopes of an NCAA tournament.
And then they come back home, and to your point, I think the competitiveness and effort was addressed in the Michigan game.
Yeah.
What did you like out of that game from Nebraska? I know you love the defense. You've been vocal about that, but obviously still a 49-46 loss. But what did they prove?
Yeah, they proved they can play with anyone in the league. Well, matchup wise, it matters. So they did prove that. I thought the game was awesome.
You're a sick man. Yeah. You're a basketball sicko.
I thought it was great. I thought that the defensive connectivity, the rotations, the defense at the rim was tremendous from both teams. Now, they didn't make any shots, but you're also going against grown men, right? Like we're talking about, like they have 2 7-foot guys. Michigan does. They're very connected. They play really hard. Both teams played. I was gonna curse really hard. Okay, like they played extremely hard, and both coaches kind of said that. And literally, during the game, you're laughing win shots. Like I was like, jeez, man, they just can't make a shot.
Yeah, he couldn't buy one.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And then, but if you actually like take a moment, think about it, it's like, wait, that was really good. Like I personally, after the game, was like, that was pretty awesome to see. Just 2 teams playing extremely hard. It was a grown man's game. Like it was. And I mean, Nebraska held the 26th ranked offense in the country to 49 points.
That'll play.
And Michigan held the not as good offense in the country to 42 or whatever it was.
So, what were you thinking at halftime? It was like 20.
I was thinking someone else needs to actually make a basket besides Bryce Williams.
Yeah.
That's what everyone
Bryce
was
had
thinking.
21 points of their 26. Is that it?
No, he had 18 of 21.
18 of 21 at half.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
And you knew he was going to have a good game. When when Bryce Williams hits his like first 2 shots, and last night they were threes, like, all right, he's feeling good today. So, but they adjust. To Michigan's credit, they adjusted tremendously in the second half. They brought their post guy higher. They hedged the ball screen harder. They doubled or trapped when he got the ball on a ball screen. They just switched to trapping him to get the ball out of his hands to somebody else because they didn't trust him. Like, they knew that like we got to shut this guy down, and no one else was making a shot. So credit to them. I thought both teams were really, really good. And now both teams are terrible at non-steal turnovers. I say terrible, like Michigan is almost dead last in the country, and Nebraska is like 277th, and that was still a problem for both teams. Both teams had over 5 of those last night. So I, again, thought it was great. And people are roasting me for that, my thought, but it's my opinion, so it's great. Yeah, it is like it was good. It was good.
You enjoyed it.
Yeah, and you can take the takeaway there is okay. That their effort, I'm really trying hard to not use gritty, grimy because like that was a thing for like 2 weeks, and everyone says it and like that's what this team is and stuff. It's like no, let's come up with a better adjective, like tough and physical.
They have the edge to their team.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah,
I get it. Like that was what was said in the press conference, but let's just kind of not move on. I guess move on from that. So yeah, the edge, the toughness, the physicality. It was a very physical game. Refs let them a lot of stuff go, especially at the rim. Like in the second half, Juwan Gary he couldn't make a shot, and so he was getting to the rim and just trying to put chest or his shoulder into chest, and those dudes weren't moving. And they were just kind of walling up defensively there, and Juwan was the one kind of bouncing back off of him, and that's not normal.
Yeah.
So, it was good. You can parlay that. If you can parlay that same effort for the next 3 games, they're gonna win at least 2, maybe 3. So, do they need to win all 3? I don't know. If they can win at Ohio State, that's another quad 1 win. That's 7. That's insane. Like for a number. They have to beat Minnesota. There's, we talk about must wins all the time, and there's been a handful of quote unquote air quote must win games for Nebraska this year for the men. Minnesota's a must win. You can't lose that game. You absolutely cannot lose to Minnesota at home on Saturday if you want to be in the NCAA tournament. You can't. Like it flat out, no question, a must-win game. And then you go to Ohio State, see what happens. Played them really well in Lincoln, so see what happens there. And then obviously Iowa, you probably feel like you got a little payback there from the 15 points in 15 minutes and 49 seconds that Iowa raced to win the game in overtime. So there's a ton to play for down the stretch in the next 3 games for Nebraska. And, last week before the Penn State loss, they were squarely in the NCAA tournament, 9 seed, 10 seed. Now it's kind of trickling back to 11 and maybe like that play-in 11 versus 11 game on like the Tuesday in Dayton or whatever it is. Please let's not do that. Don't want to do that. Personally, I would rather not. But it's it is there's opportunity there for them to just solidify the resume. I can't stress this. Have to beat Minnesota. There's no way. Like there's no path. There's no path if Nebraska doesn't beat Minnesota. There's no path. Like you can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, my last question before we wrap up. Is Bryce Williams getting enough national recognition, and what awards should he be up for?
He should be. I think squarely a first team. I think he's an all Big Ten guy for sure. Whether that's first or second team, because you have guys like John Tanji's going to be maybe even the player of the year in the league. in that same kind of position. So, but he for sure is. I would be stunned if he's honorable mention Big Ten. I think people would lose their mind, like Nebraska fan, and rightfully so if he's not, just for what he means to that team and what he's done for the team. He's one of the best scorers in the league. I think that's tremendous. Now, if his team won more, I think the national stuff would happen.
Yeah. Do you think he's going to be All-American on any of those lists?
Ooh, I don't know. Someone might throw him like a second, third team All-American, something like that. Some, random website, something. So
we can throw one.
Yeah, let's just create our own.
Hurrdat Sports All-American.
Yeah. He's All-American in my book.
Yeah.
He's actually, to be honest, he's an All-American person. So he's a great guy. But the All-American conference, I don't know if he'd have to really take them on a heater here to do it.
All right. Well, that will do it for Nebraska Shoot Around. We'll talk to you guys next time.